Hi, today I'm going to tell you a little story about person A, let's call him Andrew, and person B, let's call him Ben. Andrew and Ben don't know each other, but Andrew and Ben have both been diagnosed with pre-diabetes. Andrew and Ben weigh about the same. They both have quite a stressful job. They both work in front of a computer. They both have central obesity, and both of them enjoy a drink at the end of the day. Hi, I'm Dr. Janny, and in this video, I am going to explain what is meant when they say you need to improve insulin sensitivity or decrease insulin resistance, as opposed to just improving your glucose levels. Okay, so before we go back to our story, just a quick explainer. So we all know glucose rises after we eat. That's what we can see on a continuous glucose monitor. So a continuous glucose monitor is a little device like this, and it tells you your glucose levels in real time, like what your glucose levels are doing every minute. So you don't have to prick yourself the whole time. So when glucose rises, what we need to do is look behind the scenes. So usually when glucose rises, insulin rises as well. So when insulin rises too much and the whole time, then the body's cells get a bit sick and tired of all this insulin. So insulin needs to be higher and higher until the cells of the body can let glucose in. So that's why a continuous glucose monitor can still look normal, but underneath, the insulin is already working harder. There's already a lot more insulin in the blood. So what I am saying is that we mustn't just control glucose levels, which are important, but we must also work on controlling insulin resistance or improving insulin resistance, which means improving how your cells respond to insulin. So not just decreasing insulin, because the obvious thing is if there's no big glucose spikes, there's no big insulin spikes. So yes, that's one way, but we want to improve how the cells, especially the cells in the liver and in your muscles, how they respond to insulin, so that you don't have to produce more and more insulin for them to open the door, as a way of speaking, if that makes sense. Okay, so back to our story. We have Andrew. Here he is. He's 45, and what they call an apple bod. So your body's shaped like an apple because all the fat is around your middle. So there is Andrew. He's got curly hair. And here we go. Here's Ben. They look very similar. Ben has decided to shave his hair because he's worried about a little bald patch. Okay. And he is also there, and he is smiling. Okay, we have Andrew and Ben. So both of them have been diagnosed with pre-diabetes. They went to their doctor. They just did the HbA1c. HbA1c says what your glucose is, gives you indication of what your glucose is over the last 2 to 3 months. Okay, so both of them have HbA1c, which is in the pre-diabetic range. And both of them don't want to become diabetics. So both of them want to do something about it. Okay, so Andrew decides he's going to buy a continuous glucose monitor, which is this little device that I spoke about earlier. So a continuous glucose monitor is going to tell him what foods are actually raising his glucose. Ben also decided, coincidentally, to also buy a continuous glucose monitor. So he also bought a continuous glucose monitor. And on top of that, Ben is also researching a lot more and reading up about stuff. Andrew is, but he's not so into it. Okay, now Andrew is wearing his continuous glucose monitor, and he sees, whoa, when he eats a banana, his glucose levels go really, really high. So he tells himself he will not eat bananas. And he did the same when it came to white bread. He also saw, whoa, when he eats white bread, his glucose goes skyrocket high. But then he tried sourdough bread, and it did the same. So what Andrew came to realize is that he is not even allowed to look at a carbohydrate because it makes his glucose spike. Andrew also became a bit scared of eating any carbohydrates because he has seen that it raises his glucose, and if his glucose is not going to get better, he is going to become a diabetic, and he doesn't want to become a diabetic. So Andrew has become quite scared of looking at fruit. He avoids the fruit aisle. He's also realized that the ultra-processed carbohydrates also raise his glucose a lot. So a good thing that he's done, he's now avoiding drinking any gassy cool drinks. He's also avoiding fruit juice because he saw that makes a big spike. He is now drinking Diet Coke. He also enjoys Sprite Zero. And what he enjoys a lot is adding whiskey to his drinks. Sometimes a bit of brandewijn, but not so much. Okay, Ben is reading up. So Ben also sees, oh my word, when I have some fruit now, it does raise my glucose. But Ben is asking himself, what is actually happening underneath? So Ben is reading up and he says, okay, I see what this continuous glucose monitor is saying, but I'm not going to be afraid of food. So then he goes and has some fiber before he has the fruit. And he sees, wow, it actually improves the curve. So he's realized if he has fiber before his carbohydrate, it does improve the curve. Another thing that Ben sees is that after he eats the banana and he goes for a 10-minute walk, his glucose curve also flattens. So he tells himself, okay, I see these things, I see what is happening. Another thing that Ben has started doing, which he hasn't done before, he is lifting weights. That's not such a great weight, but he is lifting weights, so he's building muscle. So he is getting muscles, and muscles suck up glucose in your blood. And on top of that, he is walking after he eats. So he's getting muscles, and he's feeling a bit better from the movement. And when he does have glucose, then his muscles take it up a lot quicker. Okay, back to Andrew. Did I mention both of them work in front of computers? They're both IT guys, so they sit a lot. So Andrew, he's very scared of getting up because he might see his co-worker and they might be eating something lekker, so he just sits the whole time. But he's seen that if he just snacks on a little piece of meat and he has some butter that he chows. Yeah, it is a bit weird, but he eats butter because he's seen that the butter doesn't do anything to his glucose. And then he just sits still, and while he's sitting there, he sees the curve is looking much better because he's not actually eating any carbohydrates. So his continuous glucose monitor is happy with him. So he tells himself all he needs to do is just avoid anything and anybody who does that and who eats what's considered normal food, which is a debate, but anyway. So when he gets home after his IT job, he goes and sits in front of the television and he watches the screen for a long time, and the blue light shines in his eyes, and he goes to bed at 2 a.m. He likes to game, and then he brags because he only needs about 3 hours sleep a night. He goes to bed 2 a.m. and then he wakes up again, and that's the story of his life. Ben, on the other hand, has read up a bit that sleep is important for improving insulin sensitivity. So Ben also used to enjoy gaming, but he is prioritizing his health because he does not want to become a diabetic. So Ben enjoys to play his game a little bit after he comes home, but then he switches off the TV, and Ben has added a new habit, and they now call him Zen Ben, because he has become a lot more zen. He used to be very fight or flight about everything, but now we have Zen Ben, who has learned to control his emotions. He says he did it by just 10-minute meditation a day. So that's what he says, and he says he feels a lot calmer, because stress also affects the way your body handles your glucose. So it affects the way your body responds to insulin. So Andrew thinks Ben Zen, he doesn't know him, but he thinks anything Zen is a bit like wishy-washy, they don't really know what they're talking about. It's also a waste of time. I mean, who's going to sit there and do nothing for 10 minutes? So Andrew doesn't do anything about the stress. I mean, that's just life. You got to work, you got to stress. It's just what it is. To help him with the stress, when he gets home, before playing the TV games, or while playing, it's not TV games, probably now it's like PlayStation and something cooler, hey, Xbox. He pours himself a lacquer drink. He likes to add it with Coke Zero. So if he does have the Brandewijn, he'll have it with Coke Zero because it's got less calories. And then he winds down and he feels that the alcohol does help him sleep. Although it doesn't really, if you really go into it, it doesn't. Okay, so now after 3 months, both of them go back to their doctor. And they both have a very nice doctor, actually the same doctor. Very nice doctor. Okay, so Andrew weighs himself, and he's come down a little bit. He's lost like 2 kilograms. I think it's from avoiding those ultra-processed carbohydrates. But Andrew's not feeling much better. He's actually a bit annoyed because he really wants the pizza and he's not really feeling that much better. His HbA1c is also not that much better, although it is a bit better. And then Ben has lost 10 kilograms, which is a lot more, and Ben is feeling better. And Ben has lost a lot of abdominal fat. So Ben has even gone out to Woolworths to buy himself a new suit because the old one was not fitting anymore. So Zen Ben is now looking very smart. He's feeling relaxed, and his insulin sensitivity has improved. While both of their continuous glucose curves look similar, Andrew, underneath the metabolic processes, he hasn't worked on improving his insulin sensitivity. So he is still insulin resistant. So when he looks at anything that looks like a carbohydrate, his glucose spikes, his insulin spikes, and he doesn't feel so lekker. Well, Ben, on the other hand, has really made lifestyle changes and incorporated ways, although not huge ways. He's still enjoying the occasional drink. He's still enjoying some gaming as well. But his approach is different because he is prioritizing his health. And at the end of the day, Ben is much happier and joyful than Andrew. And for me, even if their blood results look the same, what you are aiming for in health, what is real health? It's not your continuous glucose monitor that's going to tell you, well done, because, you need to feel it as well. So that is my take on insulin resistance versus just doing your glucose versus really going to the root of the problem. And I really do believe there's more than one way to get there. So yes, I'm saying about the fat and stuff with Andrew, but there are different ways to get there. Just make sure that your way is a real way to do it. That's why it helps to work with a doctor or with a dietitian that actually know what your goals are and that know a little bit about glucose and insulin resistance. Okay, cool. Let me know if that makes sense. And if you want to know more about Andrew and Ben, I can tell you more about how they are doing eventually and stuff. But otherwise, I hope that you can improve not only your glucose levels, but also your insulin resistance, become more insulin sensitive, but through that, that you feel better, and that you enjoy life more. Cool.